Hey everyone, welcome to part 4 of the 100 Greatest American Currency Notes. We have covered notes 100 through 71, and this will be 70 through 61. This is number 4 in a 10-part series covering all 100 notes. I will either show the notes I have, the replicas I have, the pictures from the book, or any other way I can do it just to make sure you guys can see what these notes look like. Owning all 100 is pretty much impossible. Owning 50 is almost impossible, but you can count along with me and see how many you end up having. All right, so number 70 on the list. Number 70 is an 1862 $10 legal tender. 1862 $10 legal tender. That's the front, that's the back of it right there. What makes this note so cool is the picture of Lincoln. The note is from 1862. Lincoln was still alive. So to have Lincoln on a note while he was still president is a pretty impressive thing. The person who decides who was going to be on the note was actually Spinner, and Spinner put himself on one of the fractional currencies. So you've got Spinner's signature with Lincoln's portrait while he was still on there. It was in 1862 that there was a law passed saying that no living person could be put on notes. So that is part of the reason that note exists is because of a note like this one. Now, there are a couple signature combinations, and some of them are quite rare. And I believe my buddy Frank from Cookies and Cream has one of these notes. With all the different combinations, there's between 190 and 220 of these out there. And on average, these could be going for, around 5 to 6 grand if they're in really good shape. Unless, of course, you've got one of the ultra rare combinations of signatures. Anyway, that is number 70 on the list, the 1862 $10 legal tender. This would be from the very first issue of currency put out by the U.S. government. 1862 legal tenders were the first series. That's number 70. Number 69 on the list is one of my favorite notes in my collection. It is the 1900 $10,000 gold certificate. The $10,000 gold certificate is just one-sided. This here, nothing there on the back. The $10,000 gold certificate. Now, these were all redeemed by 1933. In 1933, they made owning gold and gold certificates illegal, so all of these were redeemed. They were also punched so that everybody knew that they were redeemed. You can see it better on the back. There's the punch right there. What makes these so cool? Aside from the fact that these were worth 500 ounces of gold, roughly, a $20 1-ounce coin, you'd get 500 of those for this certificate. This particular note, after they were redeemed, they were stored at the post office in Washington, D.C., which ended up catching on fire. And as you can see, this particular note does have the fire damage from that particular fire. Someone knew about the existence of these notes and ran into that burning building and threw them out a window to save them. There are approximately 300 to 500 of these notes out there. So no, they are not worth $10,000 because they were redeemed, but they are worth quite a bit because of the story behind them. That is the $10,000 gold certificate from 1900. Like I said, about 300 to 500 out there, and they are in nice condition. They could be worth about 3 to 5 grand without a problem. That is number 69 on the list. Number 68 on the list is the 1863 and 1864 $10 compound interest note. Now, these were obviously used similar to bonds. If you were earning compound interest, you can see the payout schedule was put right there on the back. So that was an interesting way to do it by just putting it right on the back of the note itself, so you knew what was covered. A lot of interesting things about this note. You've got Samuel P. Chase as the person on there, and you've got this picture of the eagle, which is the same depiction of the eagle that's on the 1899 $1 Black Eagle note. Now, one of the things that this picture doesn't show very well is where it says compound interest treasury note and the 10. That was actually a third printing. That is an overprint that was done by printing all of that in glue and then putting a bronzing powder over it so that it would stick to the note itself. That was their counterfeiting measure, anti-counterfeiting measure that they used on that note. So yeah, the glue overprint of the bronzing powder on the 1863 and 1864 $10 compound interest note, that's pretty cool. There's about 160 to 200 of these still out there, and in crisp uncirculated, these are going for like 95,000. In VF, you're talking about $7,500. That is number 68. $10 compound interest treasury note. Number 67 on the list. This is the $2 silver certificate from 1899. The 1899 $2 silver certificate, this one is known as the mini porthole. And you can see right there with George Washington looking out that little circle area, how that would look like a porthole or a mini porthole, because the porthole was a different note entirely. The mini porthole, like I said, features George Washington. You've got this giant blue 2 over here, as well as the blue seal as well. Very common for silver certificates. Taking a look at the back, they wanted to leave the big open areas to make it tougher on counterfeiters. By having the open areas, you were able to see the fibers and stuff. And this particular one, yeah, a little bit of tape on it, but still, 1899 mini porthole. One of the other cool things is it says $2 silver as far as what was backing it. And the silver dollars in question were the 1878 silver dollars, the Morgan silver dollars. They actually minted a ton of those, and that's why you still see hordes of these bags coming up every once in a while. There are roughly 2,500 to 4,000 of these notes still out there. And even in very fine, you can get them for somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500. You can pay a little less if you want one in this condition. But that is number 67 on the list, the 1899 $2 silver certificate. Number 66 on the list is the 1928 $10,000 bill. The Federal Reserve $10,000 bill, as pictured here, was actually made in 2 series, the 1928 series and the 1934 series. This here is the depiction of the note itself. You can see this one is actually, it says 1934 on it. Looking at the back, of course, most of these were used for bank-to-bank transactions, so you didn't see a lot of them in circulation, but they were available to the public if you had the 10 grand to spend. The most famous note about this particular note is that Binion's Horseshoe in Las Vegas had a display of 100 of these $10,000 bills. Granted, they were all the 1934s. And, well, 100 $10,000 bills would be $1 million in cash. You could get your picture taken in front of that $1 million in cash. But Binion's eventually decided to sell those notes. Because they go for about $140,000 a piece. Those notes actually topped over $200,000 a piece. Now, the 1928 version, like I said, looks just like this. It was simply the 1928 version. There's roughly 15 to 20 of those still in existence, so they are very hard to come by. But that is number 66 on the list, the $10,000 Federal Reserve note. Number 65 on the list is the 1935 A silver certificate featuring the Hawaii overprint. Now, this was emergency currency during World War II, and what they did was for Hawaii and for North Africa, they printed special silver certificates. In Hawaii, they had the Hawaii overprint here on the side. They used a brown seal, and of course, it says Hawaii on the back. The reason for that was in case Japan had invaded Hawaii and raided all the cash from the banks, they couldn't use that cash because with the swipe of a pen, Congress could simply say any brown seal note was no longer valid. They made $1, $5, $10, and $20 Hawaii notes. The 5 is actually the hard one to come by, but the 1 is the only one that made the top 100 list. So this one is number 65. Now, there are a ton of these out there as far as currency collecting goes. If this was a coin with this low of mintage or with this many surviving, it would be huge. There are roughly 10,000, it says tens of thousands of these out there, which implies under 100,000. And I know if there was less than 100,000 coins available, people would be going nuts over them. There's tens of thousands of these out there, yet these can still be had for under $100 without too much difficulty. That is the 1935 silver certificate, the emergency currency from Hawaii, number 65 on the list. Number 64 on the list is the 1878 and 1880 $500 silver certificates. Now, 1878 was actually the very first year that we printed silver certificates, and this was one of the higher denominations that you were going to find. In fact, most people never even knew these existed. These were simply bank-to-bank transactions with only roughly 40,000 total notes printed. So there weren't very many at all. And like I said, they were used primarily from bank-to-bank transactions. So these weren't available to the public in any way, shape, or form. However, 8 of them still either can be traced or have not been turned in. That's the back of the note right there. So these do exist out there. Like I said, 8 of them are out there. And as far as pricing goes, it's very difficult to put a price on it since they haven't been in any public hands. That is number 64, the 1878 and 1880 first year $500 silver certificate. Number 63 on the list. From the same series, this is the $10 silver certificate. Once again, the series of 1878 and 1880. 1878 was the very first year for silver certificates. The $10 silver certificate would have actually circulated, and it made what they quote as silverites very happy. Silverites, of course, would be people who believe in silver. It's funny how there's silver stackers today. They were silverites back then. The $10 silver certificate, like I said, from 1878. The key thing about 1878 is that was also the first year of the Morgan silver dollar. And these were backed by 10 silver dollars. That would mean that there were literally bags and bags and bags of 1878 Morgan silver dollars sitting in the treasury that were backing these particular notes. So if you ever wondered why there are so many 1878 Morgan silver dollars, that's what was used to back these notes. There are between 450 and 550 of these notes still out there. And in VF, they can run about 20 grand or so. So yeah, they're out there. They're expensive. And that's what we've got for number 63. The $10 silver certificate from 1878 and 1880. Number 62 on the list is the $10 gold coin notes. These are gold banknotes, national gold banknotes. So they're nationals in the terms of the fact that a particular bank would have been backing them, but they are backed in gold, and they actually had a gold tint to them as well, so a yellowing look, as you could say. The back of the note is what's really impressive, because the back of the note pictured all different types of gold coins from the $1 all the way up to the double eagle. You can see those on the back. It does have the familiar brown back look to it. Now, the $10 note itself was a circulated note. They did make quite a few of these, and because it was circulated, there wasn't a lot thought of the note. But because the note was backed in gold, by, what was it, 1878, the price of gold and the price of these notes, gold was no longer worth more than the paper, if that makes sense. The backing of the certificate meant that a $10 gold coin, the price of the gold versus the price of the gold coin actually balanced out, making having these notes redundant. You didn't need to have the note saying that you had $10 worth of gold, because $10 worth of gold was actually worth more than the coin. So that made people spend these notes, cash these notes out, and they were basically taken out of circulation. There are roughly 120 to 130 of these out there, yet they're very highly sought after because you have the actual coin pictures on the back. Even in F2, you can see down there in fair 2, there's fair, good, and very good. You're still talking 1,200 to 2,500 on these notes, and that's in 2 for a grade. So yeah, they are highly collectible, highly sought after. Number 62 on the list, the 1875 $10 national gold banknotes. And finally, this week, number 61, we have the $20 Treasury or coin note from the series of 1890. $20 Treasury note. Once again, this isn't necessarily backed by gold or backed by silver. It is backed by the Treasury. The Treasury could determine who was going to pay what. But that's how the backing was. The 20 on the back of this note in that wavy style like that was also fairly unique on the notes at the time. Now, the portrait is of, let's see, who do we got on here? The portrait was John Marshall, and he was the fourth Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, when he died, they rang the Liberty Bell at his funeral, and that is when the Liberty Bell cracked. So if you ever wondered about the crack in the Liberty Bell, it's this gentleman pictured here on the note. That his funeral, that's when the Liberty Bell was rang. July 6th, 1835 is what it says on here. So that one is number 61. There are about 250 to 350 of these notes out there, and in very fine, you're still talking about almost $7,000 on one of these notes. So that concludes numbers 70 through 61 on the top 100. Tune in next week when we knock out number 60 through number 51. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.